Hey, welcome to Bolt Foundry, the podcast. I am George, and I'm going to be your host. This podcast is just going to be a space to talk about all sorts of content creation. I'm a part of a team of some of the world's best software engineers, videographers, photographers, um, editors, Photoshop users, really anything you can think of. We have it here and we have the insights. So this is our first episode, and we want this to be your go-to spot to know about all things content creation. The most important thing is we're going to be talking about an app that the team of these hosts, myself, is making called Bolt Foundry. And Bolt Foundry is a platform where you can upload long videos and it will turn them into shorter clips using AI. Super useful for podcasts like this, or just sorting through content that you have that you want to post to social media. So we're also going to be talking about that and how we would use something like that um, as a part of content creation as we go about it. A little bit about myself. I am a musician. I'm a software engineer. Um, I have lots of video experience. I have acting experience. Really, myself and everybody else on this team, we're kind of just jacks of all trades, and we're gonna hopefully bring our expertise to you and some other folks along the way. So, but today we have a very special guest. Um, he is a well-rounded genius of a man, a musician, producer, videographer, husband, father, software engineer, fellow founder of Bolt Foundry, a fish enthusiast, Nintendo console hacker, handyman, and most importantly, my big brother, Josh. He is here to talk to us about his experience being a professional videographer and especially running his own video business. And so we're going to talk about that today. So let me bring in Josh. Hey, Josh.
Hey, George.
How you doing?
Thanks for having me on the show.
Of course. Thanks for being on the show.
I'm glad I was available.
Yeah, it was hard. My people talking to your people and such. But
And people talk.
yeah. Um So let's just get into it. I mostly wanted to talk about your experience doing horse shows, filming horse shows across the Western US. So give us your pitch of the business. What did you do?
Well, it was kind of an interesting business to get into. At the time when this started, I was actually training horses and apprenticing under a trainer, and they needed someone to film their show. And they're like, "Josh, you're pretty tech savvy. Do you want to like film this show?" And I was like, "Oh, sure. I'll borrow my parents' Sony Handycam to come do it." So I did, and it went pretty well. Then so much that they let go of the other person and hired me and invested some money in me to start producing these horse shows. So it started out pretty grassroots, but I got some gear. Um, I had friends who were in video production to come help me out, and over the course of 5 or 6 years, went from just a one-man show to a bunch of us producing. I think in our best year we did over 60 events that year that we produced.
Did you have any prior video experience to doing this? When they asked you, had you done video professionally at all?
Professionally, I don't know that I would call it professional at that point. My prior experience this was I was in junior high, middle school. I was on the end of year video crew because I'd been the yearbook editor the year before, and so I got experience with mini DV tapes and filming school events and then running those into the computer and picking out the best stuff to make a part of this end of year video that would be shown at the final assembly and included with every yearbook. So, and then besides that, like family tasked me with taking all of the VHS and mini DV tapes and VHS type B or type H, I don't remember what it was called. Anyway, all sorts of different physical media and digitizing it and then editing it into um compilations of all of these home videos that I did over the course of 2 years. So I'd had some experience in doing that before and just making videos for myself, but besides that, I hadn't really done anything professionally.
Okay. What what is a mini DV?
Mini DV is an old type of tape. It's a digital medium, sort of. I think mini DV stands for mini digital video. Don't quote me on that though.
Okay.
But it would support up to high definition video that would be recorded onto these tapes. Um, but it
Hmm,
was the latest camcorder that our parents had that I pulled media off of for this project. So,
nice.
and I guess that's what I shot the first horse show on too, was those mini DV tapes, and
Okay.
then digitized it and provided it on DVD or provided it on DVD or as YouTube uploads for the people who wanted to buy copies of their performance at these equestrian events.
Nice. How long in total were you doing this?
The horse show business.
Yeah.
So I guess that was our primary client, was the horse shows, but it started in 2012 and ended in 2017. So a
Okay.
little over 5 years. Or is that six? I don't know, somewhere between 5 or 6 years. And there were lots of things we learned throughout it. One of the things that I really learned from it was, I mean, how live video is just, you have to get it right then and there, or you never get it. And so, and that's what they hire you for when you're doing, live event production. Live event production, you have to be good in the moment or you're not good at all.
Yeah.
So, and I think you might have some memories too of being recruited when one of my contractors or employees wasn't going to be able to make it.
Yes. Yes, I do. I was probably was I 14? 14 or
It would have
15?
been in that age, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I would help out.
Sometime in the last 10 years.
And yeah. Well, so along with that story, because I remember like you have to be really smooth with following the subject, following the writer. You have to be really smooth with the zoom, but then also you have to pay attention to um, like the scores that were being said. If someone's run was going to be skipped, so you could know like whose videos went to who and like all this stuff, and then we would go back and like check if the numbers were lined up with the run. And I mean, there were definitely some mistakes. I don't remember doing anything that ruined a show, but there were definitely some slip ups, I'm sure. But
Yeah.
what would you say? So I mean, me, a 14-year-old kid, did an okay job at doing the video. Like, what, other than maybe the multitasking of everything, what kind of like inherent skills do you think were needed for this? What skills were really most useful for you?
You know, um,
Soft skills and
well,
technical.
yeah, I mean, first of all, I wouldn't say that you were like your average 14-year-old kid though.
Oh.
You're welcome. Like you were dependable and I could trust you to like do better if something wasn't right. And so like, I mean, when filming these types of events, I think I had you behind the camera most of the time, and being behind the camera, you, like you said, you've got to be really fluid, because you don't want someone to like pay attention. People don't notice when the video is good, but they definitely notice when the video is bad.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of true. Like you and I both have that experience with music too, where you're recording something, and a lot of times you'll put something in there and people won't notice that the thing that you've put in there is good. But if you put something bad in there, it's like the only thing that they notice.
Right. That's
You could have the best guitarist, the best bassist, and the best drummer, but like if the singer's a little off, then like that's what you notice, I think. So
that can happen. And that yeah, that happens.
so I mean the same thing's true. I'm just teasing George. George is in his band, and I like to tease him about his band a little bit sometimes. His band is great. You should go check him out. Plug for Mopsy.
Have a link. We'll have a link in the bio for the band.
Yeah. No, but I mean, being smooth is everything. We would do things technically to make sure that the audio was good. In some arenas, that would mean that we'd get a direct line and run that into our setup through like, hundreds of feet of XLR. Um, Lighting was important, so we'd get there early and we'd set up the camera so the lighting was good. But then as the light changed in the arena from the day, because they were long days, we'd have to, you know, put in the settings and then record those settings so that we knew for future days what was going to be the best look for these videos.
Yeah.
So, I mean, just attention to detail was it. And then when we were doing really well, like the attention to detail was important, but then we had time to think about innovation as well in the space. So I got really into live streaming at that point. And we'd live stream some of these events and embed them on the organization's webpage. This was really important for some events because there would be people watching from home who were interested in buying some of these horses that were in the events.
Wow.
Okay. So, and I mean, that was a whole other can of worms, because a lot of times you'd go to these facilities and there would be no internet connection there. And what do you do in that case when you've got a live stream and there's no internet connection? So you learn about technologies like VidU is one that we would use, and like bonded bonded cellular encoding was a big thing that we got into for some of these off the beaten path facilities where we were producing these events. So, and then like this bled over into other things too. It wasn't just horse shows that I was doing. It started out as horse shows, but I had the equipment, and horse shows are only 6 or 7 months out of the year really for that business.
Yeah.
So like I got into more live event production too. I was one of the directors for the Utah Grizzlies hockey team. Would go in there and also do technical directing in there, working with their TriCaster. So I got experience with a lot of these more professional, high-end live production, systems.
Yeah.
And that kind of bled into all of these things, kind of helped improve my own business with my own contracts, as well as when I was crewing for other productions.
Okay. But so how much of it like was self-taught along the way? Would you say it was all
I would say like everything's self-taught.
Yeah.
I mean,
the whole
what I guess everything is self-learned.
Yeah.
I guess would be a way of putting it, whether someone shows you how to do something or you figure it out on your own. But I mean, there's a teacher everywhere. Sometimes that teacher is experience. Other times that teacher is looking something up on the internet. Other times it's a formal education. And I learned a lot through collaboration. In college, at the same time I was running this business, I got involved with the college TV station and made a lot of great connections there that I still have to this day. So, I mean, how much of it was self-taught? I think I was willing to learn, and I learned quickly, because I wanted to, but also out of necessity, like because a business lives or dies by the people who are running it.
Yeah.
And this was my full-time job. I wasn't doing anything else. And so I had to innovate, and I had to make sure that I was um, making the content that these organizations wanted. Otherwise, I wasn't making money,
Yeah.
and I wasn't getting new contracts, and I wouldn't be able to live. So
Yeah. That's very wise. Wise words. The I just like that everything is everywhere there is a teacher. That's that's nice. But one so I guess more on the advice side of, it's like we understand, where you're coming from now. Um so on the advice side, like somebody wants, doesn't even have to be a business. I feel like myself, when it comes to starting things, I have trouble just starting things, like, and if it's a business venture, if it's a creative venture, I think that I need this equipment, I need this time to plan it, I need all of these things. And like some people say, like, just go for it and see what happens. But then there's the problem. It's like, do you feel like you had that option where you were just asked by the person you were doing the apprenticeship under to do something totally outside of what that apprenticeship was, go from training horses to, oh, well, can you film this thing? Did you feel like the pressure was really high and that you needed more than you had, or
I did feel like the pressure was high, but like I went home and looked up some videos of these events, and and kind of saw what they were looking for in that regard. And um I would say, like, you bring up, oftentimes it's scary to start something.
yeah,
And I think that, GI Joe is like knowing is half the battle, right? I think for most things,
no,
yeah, I
that's
know
G.I. Joe.
you young whippersnapper don't know anything about.
I just thought that was a saying. Apparently, it's GI Joe.
It's from GI Joe.
Hmm.
Anyway, um, knowing is half the battle, but starting, I think, is more like 90% of the battle. And I think that's true with most content creation. I used to, after I'd been doing this for a while, I would take on interns from the high schools, and then they'd go back and share things with their internship groups. And sometimes I'd go in to the like career tech places at the high schools and do like workshops with them. Um, and at the time, like Vine was a thing,
Yeah.
and so we would be like, let's spend 30 minutes making vines, and we just pull out our phones and have everyone. We'd do a little mini film festival. We'd break them off into groups of three. They would film some vines for 30 minutes, and we'd come back, and then we'd have a little, voting and awards ceremony type thing with it. And it just showed that, like, you could make some cool stuff and start figuring things out just by starting with what you've got. And everyone's got a cell phone right now. If you want to make content, like, if you're doing a podcast like this, use your webcam on your laptop, or use your cell phone if you don't have a laptop. Or, you want to get a message out to someone, start. I mean, it might suck, um, but eventually you're going to have something that doesn't suck. And the faster that you can get from suck to not suck is like what's going to make you successful. I remember when I started writing music. I started writing music in high school, and I remember doing this challenge called FOM. Someone told me about it, and I'm like, oh, I'll do that. I was like, wow, like these people are making tons of music, and a lot of it sucks, but a lot of it's really good. And so I tried it. I think out of like 15 songs that I made during that challenge, one of them was okay. And
Yeah.
the other ones were like not great. Especially, I mean, there were lots of things about them that weren't great, but there were good little things learned from each of those. And now I make music, less often, but the quality of my output is a lot better than when I started. But I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't have those skills if I didn't start.
Well, I hope everybody is whoever watches this or listening feels the inspiration, because I don't know if it's just because Josh is my older brother, but I'm like, wow, all the things I could start. He did it, and so can I. No, I think that is true. I mean, in like working together, um, I think like I've being the youngest. Background for anyone listening, I'm the youngest on the team by at least 10 years. Josh is the next youngest on the team, and so we're 10 years apart. Um, and so when I was, you know, asked to if I wanted to be a part of, making this platform and pitching in on marketing and sales and coding and making this podcast, I felt like insanely underqualified, because I'm 22. I didn't go to college. I've done a trade school to learn, like a coding boot camp to learn, full stack development. I've worked like a sales job. I spent some time out of the country, like learned a different language and talked to people and things. But I mean, still, you know, I think the first week I just spent sitting at the desk, like maybe writing something down every once in a while, being like, well, I could maybe do this. And there all these things that I could do, and I didn't know what I was expected to do, or all these different things. And I remember Josh being like, just do something, it's better that you're just, actually doing something, because that's, 90% of it is starting it, like you said. So
Yeah.
that's, I think that's super valuable. That's awesome.
The last thing you said there reminded me of something that we would say sometimes when I was working at Facebook. And we had this poster of a rocking horse, and it said, "Don't mistake motion for progress."
Hmm.
And it's kind of a counterpoint to this, like, just do something, because I think just do something is important for starting. I think that should be clarified. Like, nothing happens until you start, so you should do something. But once you started, you need to evaluate and measure and see what you're doing, and like learn from that, see what else you need to learn from that, and use that as the next step, because starting takes the most energy to do it, and then you got to keep it going by keeping it alive, by innovating, by iterating, by learning and growing. Because if you just keep doing the same thing over and over again, it's just, yeah, you got on the rocking horse, that was starting it, but now you're just rocking back and forth, and you're not, running the Kentucky Derby.
Yeah, that's, I think that's a yeah. I'm a little, yeah, dumbfounded at that. I feel like, because there's a lot of comfort in saying just start, just do something, and then it's like, well, it's just easy, right? Like I just do whatever, and my dreams come true, and I have my own business and things work. But yeah, I mean, you got to evaluate and do meaningful things, once you've actually started. So that's, yeah.
Yeah. Like, I think about that with my previous production company that was doing the horse shows. Is like, yeah, I just started, but I didn't keep using a Sony Handycam, right? I switched to a more professional camera that recorded on digital media that would be saved as files and I could use on the computer. And I got better editing tools, and I got cables so that I could get better audio instead of just using the on-camera mics. And I learned about live streaming so I could offer new products. So I definitely started that, and I didn't let myself be halted in starting that by like overthinking it and over planning it. But after I started it and saw that there was an opportunity there after starting it, I I came back, I learned from that, figured out what changes I needed to make, made those changes, did it again, kept repeating the process until I had something that was really sustaining me as my own business, doing content creation, doing production for these events.
Yeah. So how, I guess, just for anybody that's curious, when you say it was sustaining you, how sustainable was
How
it?
sustainable? Sustainable enough that I was paying way too much in taxes to the to the IRS
For a single guy in his 20s.
for a single guy in his 20s uh that I shouldn't have been managing myself, and at that point should have had an accountant handling my taxes for me, because that took up a big chunk of my time managing the financials of this business. I was getting help on other things, but like I spent way too much time doing taxes. I don't
That's
know if that answers your question.
that
It
answers
was
the question. It's a pretty badass answer. Like how sustainable? So sustainable I should have had an accountant.
I don't know. It wasn't like I did better when I was working for Facebook as a coder, partner engineer there.
Sure.
But I mean, for something that I built myself and was helping to support other people who were working for me too, like it was a it was a great business and I enjoyed what I did. So
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, sweet. Um, just trying to see. Oh, I want to know what is what is the biggest success? What was the biggest moment of success in the business when you were like, was there a moment where you're like, I am the king of doing this? I know what to do, I know how I'm doing it. And then on the other side, was there a particular moment when you were like, I wish I would have never done this. This is like awful.
yeah, totally. So there are two moments that come to mind when you're like, oh, big success moments. And then I'll have to think a minute about the bad ones, because there were lots of things that I wish I would have done differently, and that water under the bridge, but it wasn't very fun water. Um one one thing that comes to mind is I had done some side production work for a large organization, a large corporate organization, where I was doing tours of their facilities. I had done live broadcasts of seminars, and they call me up at the end of the year after I'd done some work for them, just a couple $1,000 worth of work. And they said, hey, we've got this extra marketing budget and we want to give it to you up front for some work we're going to do this next year. And they gave me a number and I was like, holy crap, that's more than I've like been paid by a single client ever. As so I felt like I had learned some things and I was doing something good enough that this major corporation, I mean, I won't share names or anything
Sure.
just because um anyway, it was I ended up doing videos over the next year or two for them off of this budget, not a ton of them, but some of them, that they just had me on a retainer for. And I was like, I built this myself and these people want it. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
The other time was later in later in my time running this business. I had gotten a bunch of skills, and I had gotten was able to give referrals to people to because I knew people in the industry. And at one point, someone came to me and they're like, "Hey, there's this awesome startup. that is doing like live video production through the cloud. And I was like, that's really cool because I was really big into live at the time. And I chased him for like 6 months, being like, hey, I need to talk to you guys. I need to work with you guys. And finally, after 6 months, he called me up while I was on a shoot. I was actually doing a shoot down in Florida for a reality TV show.
Mhm.
Um, and he was like, hey, we need someone to come help us do this. And, my buddy said that you're really good at it and said you've been wanting to talk to us. Can we talk today? And I'm like, oh, crap. Can't talk today, but let's talk in 2 weeks when I get back from doing this reality TV show. And I get back and I meet up with this guy and we have boba tea. And I described to him what I'm doing. He talks about what he's doing. And he's like, well, finances aren't fantastic right now. We're still trying to really get off the ground. But like, why don't you come work for us for the next 6 weeks? And I'll give you like $700 for the next 6 weeks total. I was like, done. And I was willing to do that one because it was the off season. I just got done with this big shoot, had a lot of money in my pocket, and I really wanted to work with these guys because it was like cutting edge technology.
Yeah.
Of course, this was VidPresso, and I worked with VidPresso for a couple of years, through some high points and through some low points, but eventually, the seven of us who were at VidPresso at the time, we got acquired by Facebook and then went to work for Facebook for some time. So like being able to like see that opportunity and jump on it and then, be able to weather the storms that came with it, uh, was definitely one of the things I'm most proud of. Uh, and as far as my career goes,
Yeah.
um, one really lame point of my career was we were doing something where our dad was the choir director for a large church choir. And he had asked me, because he knows that I know how to do sound production, he had asked me to run the sound for them for this large event. And the dude at the facility wouldn't let me use the board. I'm like, dude, I know what I'm doing. Like, I've run sound for all this stuff, and I do like technical directing, and I've done sound for the Utah Grizzlies and the Utah Jazz. Well, I lied about the Utah Jazz part. Um, and I wish I hadn't because it was just dumb. I just wanted to like seem more qualified than I actually was.
Sure.
Um, the guy gets a smug look on his face. He's like, "Oh, you do you?" And it turned out the guy I was talking to was the guy who ran for the Utah.
Utah Jazz. Oh no.
So that didn't go very well. That was one of the most embarrassing moments of my life. Um, but you know,
Did he let you on the board after that?
oh, absolutely not. He was never going to let me on the board, no matter what I said. But I was very embarrassed and learned some good lessons from that one. Learned that you can be cocky, you just can't say extra. The thing is I was well qualified. I shouldn't have needed to feel like I needed to over qualify myself by adding that on too.
Yeah.
Like, and we had worked with the Jazz before. I'd been on the floor with the Jazz doing like camera work for the floor cams, but not the sound. So
Well,
anyway, we all make mistakes. That's what I'm not proud of and will never make again.
there you go. Well, that's awesome. I've loved this conversation. I feel like, I mean, anybody who wants to get started or just wants to understand like the path of it all, just starting your own business, getting into video, just kind of diving into something that you love or you might even like not know you love can be, you know, can totally be done. And so I appreciate I appreciate this talk. Josh, do you have
Anytime,
any
George.
final words, and maybe a plug on Bolt Foundry? How would you have used Bolt Foundry in your career?
How would
How?
I have used Bolt Foundry in my career?
Yeah.
Well, that's a good question because when I was doing it, like social media, the stuff I was making for social media is not like the short snippets that you see today on TikTok.
Right.
But as someone who is, writing some code on Bolt Foundry and helping to shape this product, like it's really good at finding bits from long content that's interesting without you having to look through it. I mean, that was one of working on various productions, filtering through footage to find the bits you actually want to use is one of my least favorite things.
Yeah.
And being able to have AI do that, have this product do that really quickly, will save a ton of time for content creators, especially people who are making podcasts like this one. I'm sure we're going to see some awesome clips come out of this.
Yeah.
Or not. I mean, maybe I'm always a little self-conscious about how I am on camera, so maybe I won't be a good judge of the clips, but you can be.
Yep.
So
So perfect. Thanks, Josh. Well, we will be back next week with another episode and another guest. So thank you for being here for our pilot episode. Stick around for all things about content creation. Please check out Bolt Foundry. We're going to launch a public beta here soon. You can sign up to stay in the loop with everything at boltfoundry.com. All the links for our socials and everything will be in the bio of this video, in the description. And yeah,
if you're dying to use it sooner, we are opening up private beta really soon. Reach out to George. Um, it'll be a bit buggy, but it'll get the job done. Or just know that we're going to be squashing a lot of these bugs in the next couple weeks.
so perfect. Thank you guys so much for watching. Josh, thank you for being here. And this is Bolt Foundry, the podcast. So.